So last week, and Jing and I work on the PR for adding the Snapshot API and also the controller. So Jing already submitted PR for those. Can anyone see the screen? I assume everyone can see the screen from Jing, right?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, thank you. So because we already reviewed APR a few times, it seems okay, but actually we still have a couple of minor issues. The very first one is because we call volume snapshot and the volume snapshot data. And so in the definition of volume snapshot data resource plural, you can see automatically it's generated as after data. And it's actually not, does not make sense. You have datas. And this is kind of an issue in the client generator. Because right now, right, it's very simple. It just directly add as there. And either we have to kind of help or wait for client generator to become more smarter, so that it won't generate as after data. Or like Jordan suggests, we can also rename the volume snapshot data type. And we thought a little bit about it and have a few like suggestions. Volume snapshot detail, volume snapshot resource. But if you call it volume resource snapshot resource, it will become here the constant name. I'm not sure it's become volume snapshot data resource. No, volume snapshot resource plural. It also quite weird. Seems detail works fine. And anyone have like objections or comments?
To me, detail doesn't sound correct. If this is actually referring to the actual data behind the snapshot, for me, details would be sort of like I look at the object, or I do -o YAML to get more information. So to me, details is confusing.
Confusing, okay. So for data, then we just have this kind of issue.
What about contents? Like content, like snapshot contents?
That's a good idea. I'm like think that's fine for me. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, sounds good.
Volume snapshot content, and then you have volume snapshot contents. Any other suggestions or comments? Because if we use it, we will like keep using it. We cannot change it anymore. So if you have any like thoughts, please let us know as soon as possible. Otherwise, I think we kind of agree we can use volume snapshot content. Volume snapshot content. Okay, great. So we can move on. I think another issue we have is conditions. So before we define right now like 4 conditions: creating, uploading, ready, error. But if you check the suggestions like for conditions, conditions is not mainly used to represent like state machine states. And right now we cannot follow the state machine states pattern, like first phase is creating and the move to the next phase is uploading. And after the finish, it's become ready. And if you see other like conditions, most of the condition, I think it suggests to use kind of something like observation, like user care about. And for snapshot case, if we think about what user care about, they don't care about, okay, whether it is currently creating phase or uploading phase. They more care about whether the snapshot is ready, they can use. And also they care about whether the snapshot is cut or the snapshot is already taken, so that they can resume their application from that point. So from that, it's kind of subtle difference. It's not a major difference, but from that point of view, we think about condition. We can have a condition called is ready. Then is ready when it has become true. That means the snapshot is completely ready. Like user can use it to provision new volumes. And another condition is called is taken, or is cut, but it seems taken is more formal. So is taken means the snapshot is already taken and or cut. So if you see that condition is true, user can resume their applications. And for before, like if you use creating, uploading, ready, then that means when the snapshot is creating, right, it becomes true. But when it moves to uploading, then you have to make creating false and then make uploading true, which is like not very convenient to do. But right now, if you say is taken, become true, and then after, if there is uploading phase, the snapshot is ready, then you can make is ready true, but you don't need to modify is taken true to false anymore because it still is taken. So it's no longer like a state machine or states. So you must move from this to the next one and change the previous one to false, etc. And we still have ready, then yeah, we have is taken, is ready, and arrow, also an arrow state condition. So now we propose to have 3 conditions. One is taken, one is ready, one is arrow.
I'm trying to, if I may, I'm trying to understand the differences a little bit. So I'm going to try to state it back. So is taken means that the storage has all the bits of the snapshot, so you could resume at that point. And is ready means that the data is available so that you could, for example, promote it to another volume. Are those the right states, or do I have it wrong?
Yes, that's what we yes.
So for me, taken, when I hear taken, I keep thinking like somebody has it, like it's been taken by somebody else. So therefore it might not be available to me. I almost wonder if is created at that point. I know we had the state creating, so there's a little confusion there, but created to me says, okay, it's there now. But then, and then maybe something like available, that to me suggests that the data now is available. So it's been created, but it's not yet available. And then it's available when I know that I can now do something with it.
Yes, so the term you suggest is one is created and the other is available.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like rename all of your terms today. I'm just like trying to understand it for myself.
Right. You're right. Yeah, when you say it's taken from that point of view, I can totally get it. So this can mean kind of different things. We definitely want to make it clear for user, right, for them to understand better and avoid any confusion. So I think available, created is a good choice. Anyone else like have different thoughts, or now we just have 3 states is enough for everyone to think about their snapshots condition?
So for the ready state, do you want to be consistent with some of the other places? Because I think seems ready is used in other places, isn't it?
Yeah, we use ready quite a lot in many different other APIs. So like pod is ready, or yeah, stateful sets or some other like workload related.
On the other hand, I think PV is available.
I'm sorry.
I think PV is available.
Oh, but they use available for the condition.
For the status, not for the condition. So it might be different, but that verb is being used in PVs.
Okay. PV is available, right? Then snapshot is available. I think, yeah, if this word also used for this type of like state or condition, I think it's no problem for us to use too. So, any other thoughts? So that also means those conditions are not mutually like exclusive, right? So, but I think it's also true for other type of conditions.
I guess you couldn't have it be available without it being created. So that they're available implies created, I guess. Is that true?
Yes, yes. If available is true, created must be already true. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for some volume plugins, if they don't have like uploading phases most of the time, when the snapshot is like taken, is created, at almost the same time, it's ready to be used. So you can set those 2 conditions to true almost at the same time. But if there is uploading phase for some cloud providers, and normally available will comes later, like, or much later than created. And if there is any problem for when it's created or when it's uploading, we will have arrow condition to represent that. And the details will tell us what's the reason for the field, like for the arrow condition. So, okay, I think, okay, anyone want to say something?
I have one other question about it. So if, is there a difference in how you might need to handle the object if it had been created but not available versus available? So if there's this, do you need to differentiate the error states from an end user perspective, or would we expect that deleting the object from its error state, all that could be handled in the same flow?
So you mean the error happen at different phases? The error may happen when it's created, and error may happen when it's uploading.
Yeah.
And, so the user might handle it differently because of those different type of like different errors like happen at different time.
Right. For me, I don't see it. I feel like the object deletion should handle either case appropriately internally, but I figured I'd ask the question to see, because otherwise then you'd probably need separate states.
Yeah. So for the cloud provider that has uploading phases, I don't see any other like solution like if the snapshot has problems either at creator or uploading, either of those, you cannot use the snapshot. So you should like delete snapshot. There's no other operation you can do to handle this situation right now. Yeah, like you said. Okay. Yeah, but we can definitely keep that in mind and confirm or see anyone has issue with that. Yeah. Okay, so right now we just have 3 conditions: created, available, and error. So let's see. We'll update PR and see anyone has other thoughts. Yes. And Jing, do we have other like discussions about PR?
I think these 2 are the main ones. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yes, I think in case I'll send this PR link to the group, and so please let us know your thoughts, and we'll probably merge it very soon after we update those few things we discussed so far, so that we can more focus on controller part. And another thing related to controller implementation is right now, I think we discussed this before, instead of have controller to keep trying creating snapshots, like a controller, normally our controller does, like it keep trying to create, let's say, volume. We only try to create snapshot once. If there is error, if the operation failed, we will just return without keep trying, because we thought snapshot operation is very time sensitive. When user start like snapshot, they might prepare something, and when it's finished, they need to resume. And we don't want to keep it a long operation, like keep trying, and the user might forget it, and they have snapshot much long, like later time. I just want to confirm anyone has like concerns about that logic.
Does the user has an option to cancel the request at any point of time?
No, there's no cancellation. Yeah, in our framework right now. Yes.
Because I see this is one of the issues we were facing with the resize controller. Once you issue the request, if the request is not satisfied from the storage vendor, it will be keep retrying. There is no way to actually recover that scenario. So I don't know. Does it make sense to have a cancel option for snapshot at least?
Okay. So because our logic here is, if there is issue, we just return immediately. We won't keep trying. So I think it avoid us to do a cancellation, right? So if we will try to controller keep trying, and yes, cancellation will be very useful, because user don't want to stop it, right? And check what's the problem. But since if we fail, we just return immediately, and we don't need to handle the cancellation.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So otherwise, yeah, it's hard for user to cancel this operation. And normally for all the volume plugins, right, if you have you issue a snapshot, take a snapshot operation for like GCE, we cannot cancel the operation. we either like wait it finish or it fail or it succeed. Yeah.
So in the case of volume resize, cancellation is hard because what prompts volume resize is a change in the PVC size in the spec. Whereas here it's really straightforward. As long as you delete the snapshot object, the snapshot request object, then you're effectively canceling it. It's just like deleting a PVC to cancel dynamic provisioning.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't see supporting cancellation as a big problem here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
well, it's, if I may add, it's actually a Kubernetes API philosophy. It's intent-based. So as long as there is a snapshot object that says that there should exist snapshots of this PV, the controller will try to fulfill that intent. And until we know it's impossible, we will try. So error makes sense. And cancellation would be done just by deleting the intent, deleting the object.
No, this is just like dynamic provisioning. Dynamic provisioning, if you specify, let's say, wrong storage class, or for some reason you cannot do provisioning, you're going to keep failing, and the user has to delete the PVC, realizing what the failure was, so they can remedy the situation. Same thing should happen here, I think. If the reason for the failure in snapshot reoccurs, you have to readdress that problem. And that goes well with the whole declarative model, because otherwise it's just a one-time operation. As soon as you encounter an error in snapshot, then that's it. The controller wouldn't process that object, and this doesn't really, it's much different than the way the declarative API for PVCs and PVs work.
So I was wondering what happens if the operation is stuck at uploading stage. I'm not sure about the cloud providers and how it works, but if it's stuck in the uploading stage, how it's going to, or how the user can actually recover from it.
Well, the volume snapshot operation should be a idempotent operation, hopefully. So regardless of where it fails, we should resume from where it left off or where it got stuck.
Yes, by using the snapshot ID, if you keep the operation creating from CSI, it should not create a second new one. So it should see there is already one there, even though it's not finished yet, and it won't create a new one. But so for controller point of view, I just heard, right? Use some still thinking to controller keep trying, just as the same as other create PVC, create volume. Is that right?
I don't know. I mean, if you want to keep the behavior consistent with other things in Kubernetes, the whole declarative model is suggests to do that. Otherwise, it's very much imperative. It's just a one-time operation that we do, and it's, I think, a new type of behavior, not just for storage, but also for other areas in Kubernetes.
It's true. That's from a consistent point of view. The reason we think we don't want to retry is the snapshot is kind of one-time thing. The user wants to create snapshots right now, and they don't want to have controller just behind, keep trying to do it. That's my concern about from user point of view.
So you're right. When users want to take a snapshot, especially applications, consistent snapshots, they want snapshots to be created at a certain point in time. So, and even for scheduled snapshots, you want your snapshot to be taken at a certain point in time. If you fail in the time window, you don't want to retry 2 minutes later or 5 minutes later. So I agree. Snapshots are somewhat different. But also the case we're talking about, where For example, the whole purpose of this whole uploading condition is to let user know when snapshot operation was cut so they can resume their application, right?
Right.
So if for some reason snapshot fails, I think we should leave it to the user if they want to restart the application, which is, again, a manual operation, so they're heavily involved, or if the application is already paused for the snapshot to be taken, then I don't think users mind if it gets retried, multiple times. So based on, whether it's on-demand snapshots, whether the pod is paused or not, whether it's scheduled snapshots or not, I think retry may make sense or may not make sense.
Yes. So you're more like saying user already kind of have this knowledge, like controller always keep trying, and they should, I say, keep close monitoring the snapshot states, conditions, and if there's something wrong, they can choose to delete these snapshots, means like cancel the controller to keep trying, so they can resume application. Otherwise, if they don't do anything, the controller just keep trying.
So I think for application consistent snapshots, where the application has to be paused, retry may make sense, but some users may not be comfortable, because if application is going to be paused for a long time, that's not desirable, because the clients of that application will notice the downtime, and so
how about this?
That's not desirable.
We have an option like retry or not, so user can specify true or false for this behavior. Is that possible? I think it's possible. It's just it is useful for user to have like let's say in Snapshot API spec, we have like retry true or false.
I think that would be useful. Yeah, so if the users are empowered to, based on, for example, if it's a scheduled snapshot, it doesn't make sense to retry, because you want to be able to take snapshot at a certain point in time. For example, every night at midnight. But if the application doesn't care and it just waits, it has to wait for a snapshot to be generated, maybe for those type of applications, we enable this feature.
So I think it should not much trouble for us to provide such option. Should we do it at right now or at it later, or anyone has other thoughts about this option?
So there was also a field called snapshot class, something like that. I don't remember.
Yes, we add a snapshot class. Jing, can you show your screen?
So maybe snapshot class can be used to specify that parameter, maybe, I don't know.
Yes, so.
So is the link to the PR the one that I copy pasted in the chat?
I think the one you picked on is the design spec. We actually have the code.
Okay.
Yeah, the code. So this is the one. Let me put this one.
Yeah, could you please share the link to the?
Yeah.
So yeah, right after this meeting, I will share the PR link in the doc.
Yeah.
In our meeting notes, and also I might try to send through email so everyone can see this PR.
So regarding the retries, it seems that you could do this in a phased approach and later on add like a max retries parameter that defaults to 0 if we're having the default behavior to not retry. And then that way the user actually can specify the number of retries, because otherwise the next question would be, if it's a Boolean value, who gets to set the number of retries?
Yes. I remember in the very early design doc, we do have such parameter, like maximum number of retry in snapshot design, and somehow we drop it at some point. And seems like it is a useful feature. And so everyone, if everyone think it's very useful, we can try to add it now. And also the place to have this parameter is, one is in storage snapshot class, the other is just directly in the spec. So for snapshot class, that means everyone who use this class will have the same number of retry. If you directly specify in the spec, then it's individual specification.
Yeah, like my view for what it's worth is that there's a really clear, obvious way to add this later that doesn't disrupt things or break any starting stuff. So it seems like a really great candidate for a follow-on PR instead of doing it all at once. Right.
I agree. So, but for the current implementation, default behavior would be retry 0.
Yep.
So anyone have objections about this? So we definitely can have future next phase and add the feature. Yeah,
it looks good to me.
Okay, great. So Jing, you find your snapshot class?
Oh, you want volume snapshot? Which one are you looking for?
The snapshot class, I think we add a snapshot class, just show the snapshot class the definition. Yeah.
Okay. So volumes. Oh, probably shouldn't be looking this way too much.
So when is the deadline for merging this PR?
We hope as soon as possible. So basically, we can give another a couple of days. So we want to merge the API first, so that we can easy for us to work on the controller part. We also have a controller API, but it's a work in progress.
So this one.
Okay, this is the first time I'm seeing this PR, so I would like to go through it.
Oh, okay.
Just to see.
Sure. Sorry, we basically doing this last week, and we haven't got a chance to share with everyone. And so after this meeting, I share it, and I will see how many people have comments. Depends on that, we can decide when to merge it. So just if anyone have thoughts, please let us know. As soon as possible.
Okay.
And this is volume snapshot spec. I thought there is a snapshot class.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was I was looking at what is snapshot. Okay, snapshot class is here. Yes, here.
Yeah. So right now it's quite simple. We just have snapshotter is similar to provisioner, right? The plugin name, and then the opaque parameters. So, and later, we mentioned, we can add more things to have more features, like retry or something else. But currently, the most basic one are just provisioner, the snapshotter plugin name and parameters. And one more thing is the name. Right now, we use volume snapshots to explicitly telling people this is the snapshot for volume. So but we do have like API group name. Currently, we propose to use extensions .storage.k8s.io. So since this is in storage group, and I think Michelle mentioned whether we do need a volume before snapshot or just very simple snapshot. We can use snapshot as a name. Just like snapshot class, we have snapshot and snapshot content. But before, in our external provisioner repo, we do use volume snapshot. Maybe people get used to that name. So is there any need or to change that, or any benefits to make it short?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about it. I'm trying to think if there's any other objects that would need to be snapshotted ever, like any configuration of a pod spec or something, and nothing is really coming to mind. So I almost feel like just as long as we're consistent with all the different types, whether they have the volume before or not.
Yeah, but well, when we talk about snapshot in our storage group, right, we immediately know it is for storage. But in other like work group, snapshot might means like they take a snapshot of their pod. It's also possible, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And in the future, I don't know. Since this is not only for storage, to make the name more explicit, I think it's also okay. Although it's not maybe not very necessary, but
yeah, I mean,
She was thinking this snapshot can be used for things that are not storage.
Yeah, not this used for storage. Just someone else also use the term of snapshot.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, frankly, I don't think volume snapshot is that long. So I think you're still in a pretty relatively reasonable object name length.
Okay. Okay. Then we can just settle down with volume snapshot. And as we mentioned from last meeting, yeah, the main purpose right now, right, for snapshot spec, anyone else has comments, issues, and you can look at the PR more closely after the meeting. So last time we mentioned we want to settle down about the data source. So after a snapshot is taken, right, people want to use it to provision volume from snapshot. And before, we proposed to use a field saying snapshot source in the PVC spec. And after we have like more thoughts about future, and also Erin proposed to have a clone operation, then the volume might have different type of sources kind of to provision. So after you create volume, right, or during the creation, you can have a snapshot source, you can have another like volume as source. It's a clone, or like GC, some cloud provider support to have a source image. So they open the door for like people to use different sources to populate data for their volumes. And we propose to have a data source in the PVC, and this how to have the data source struct. We still have like we're not settled down the struct. I think last time Saad mentioned to have type and to have a string, so that in the future, if you have different type of sources, we don't need to modify our API again and again. The problem is kind of limit what we can do since you only have a string there, right? So thinking about the sources, actually one type of source is another API object from the system. Like Snapshot is another source which is represented by API object. Or for clone, PVC is another API object. So it's easy. You just give the API object name. But whether we want to support more type of sources and how we represent them, or we should like just make it consistent. So if you have other type of sources, then somehow you create either using CRD or something, make it an API object, and we just put the API object name as a string. But then we need some controller, right? What's this? The controller need to handle this. And also whether we can support, let's say, cross namespace, then whether we should specify namespace in the source. So this all kind of tangle together, yeah.
So I think I'm trying to address, there's a lot there for sure. So I think on one hand, it could be really interesting with this idea of moving certain things out of tree to actually have like out of tree components that can be responsible for implementing the data source logic. And I mean, that opens up a whole different can of worms for sure. So I wonder if there'd be a way to allow you to use in-tree objects or out of tree objects. I guess it sounds like you could reference a CRD in the type there, but you'd have to have a controller. Is that what you were saying the rules are there?
Yes. So for API perspective, when we talk with like API, the architecture team, they are like saying it should be okay for, let's say, in-tray API objects, let's say PVC, to have reference to like CRD out of tray. But they want to make sure that when you design it, they should quite generic. So you don't want to add like small things, keep adding small things. So yes, so Snapshot is a good example. In Snapshot right now, is a CRD, and the PVC, when you provision volume, we want to be able to provision from Snapshot, then they need to have a way to reference the Snapshot CRD.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking like just to be a little concrete about a potential third-party data source could be, you could have some sort of controller that manages like importing from arbitrary sources, like downloading content or other things like that. So that would be an interesting out of tree project to incorporate into something like this. And I don't want to broaden the scope of this PR at all, but it was just an example where it'd be cool if you could have something that was sort of registered in the system along the lines of an external provisioner that actually could be like an external data source that you would reference arbitrarily. So.
Right.
Anyway.
So the external provisioner need to recognize, right, those CRD, and then make, let's say, appropriate parameters. And for CSI, right, it will put those parameters to the CSI call. So CSI can know, okay, what is the source, for example, what is the parameters they should use. And so from that point of view, we can say, let's say a type and a string. So we say either it is string tree or out of tree, then it is always API object, right? CRD or just in core type. So the type will represent what is the actual type, and then string would be just the name of that API object.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't have other you cannot directly just put some arbitrary name, string, or something in the source. So it always be just object, API object. But you can have new type of object.
Yeah.
Is then in this struct, we will change to what like Saad mentioned before. The data source struct would have a type and a string, more or less like that. Yeah.
It seems pretty reasonable.
So basically, the type can be any type. We're not going to control what type we support in the code. It's just whatever it is, and it goes to that type of, or maybe could be some external controller that is controlling that source. But we're not going to limit to say, okay, here are the few types that we support. But that means we need to add those to the APIs. So you're saying that we don't want to change the API anymore after we just define it as a type and the name, and that's it, and we don't change the API anymore.
Yes, that's the benefit of you have. Yes.
Okay.
But whether to kind of restrict the type, yeah. So right now, right, we only know, let's say, 2 types, snapshot and another PVC. We could have a validation, like user cannot have other type, but then the user cannot take advantage of having other sources.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, can have both ways. Okay, so yeah, I'm fine if you want to make it that flexible.
So another question, and you can tell me if it's going a little opening too much here, but I see the Git repository type here. My question is there any idea to have these sources, are they resolved only by the dynamic provisioner at the volume provisioning time, or are we proposing to have it so that a provisioner could provision an empty volume and then some other component after provisioning is responsible for populating? So the reason I'm asking is Git repository seems like pretty generalized logic that you wouldn't want to force every single provisioner of storage to implement within their own code. That would be something you'd want to maybe be composable outside of the fact. Have we considered that there might be some user space, that's the exact or a really bad term, but like basically pod space, PVC populators, and then maybe some provisioner space populators?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting point. So Git repository right now, since in our in tray, if you check the PVC volume source, right? Git repository is also one type of volume source. So user can, let's say, create a PVC, actually represent this Git repository. So the type would be just PVC, and you have your PVC name in the name field. But how controller actually provision, actually create volume and then populate data, we need to have more thoughts about that. So like you just mentioned, that would be something interesting. But we can first propose the API, and also this things going to in tray, right? We need get approval from like API spec point of view. So we can propose, but at the same time we can discuss about the controller part.
Yeah.
How to implement the controller part.
Yeah, the reason that I kind of asked that is because there'd probably be a bit of in-tree changes required, maybe potentially to add add more complexity to the PVC state machine, because you would probably want if you have this sort of pod space populator, it would have to be able to attach start a pod and attach to that PVC before anyone else could, while the PVC was in a certain state, perhaps. So there might be some changes to consider pushing up. It probably doesn't all have to go in one go to the up to the in-tree stuff, but it's just some things that I think might come up if you do decide that you want to support that sort of pod space population.
I see. Yes. So let's give some time to think about that part. So definitely a topic for next meeting, and very importantly for this week, we want to review the API for snapshot part. Mm-hmm. We'll try to have the controller parts ready too, so people can start review it too. So it's almost the time. Any other issues, feedback, suggestions people want to bring up? Okay, great. It seems like we have very good discussion for this meeting, and kind of almost decide a few changes we want to have in the API spec. And please review it this week. Yeah, we can make good progress. Okay. If no more issues, we can stop now, and hope to see you next week.
Thanks, Jing.
That's good.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.